Hey everyone, I'm going to go through a dem today for how to manufacture an architectural model using the techniques we have here at Tempe High School. So we've got Fusion, we're going to do our modeling there, and we'll move into like a specific technique for modeling. So we'll model everything as like 3mm sheet material, and then we'll go through modeling like how to fit all those bits together so everything can register and like glue together, with strength and accuracy. Um, so yeah, we'll jump into Fusion, um, and we'll get going. Oops, fix up my display. All good. Okay, so first thing with any building, models included, is you need to make a floor plan. Okay, so this isn't going to necessarily be to scale or working within a particular scale, but it's really just to show you the techniques. So the first thing you need to do, obviously, is lay down the size of your foundation. So this can be exact, so you can do it a number of ways through planning out your rectangles, for example. You can put one here. You can put one, here like this, for example. You can extrude this out as is by selecting both, okay? Or you can do it another way you want. What I'm going to do is use my snipping tool and just pass through this and have that all selected. But if I want this to be the exact, place that my walls are built on, if I'm making this out of 3mm plywood on a laser cutter, I probably want a bit more of a border around it, right? So I could glue that on later, but this technique I'm going to show you will involve us making a 15mm offset. So that'll be -15 around here. So the house will definitely go here on top of these walls, but we won't actually use that part of the solid model to do our modeling. We'll model out this one as 3mm, and then we'll do another offset on top of this at -3 mils, because our material is 3mm thick, and if we want to build our walls directly up from this foundation, we'll offset 3mm, and then we'll use that surface to kind of apply all of our sketches and things like that. So this way we get a little border around our base, so you'll see why. So when we cut in holes to register our walls and everything like that, you have a bit more material to kind of reinforce and strengthen your model. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So here and here, the two things I'll make. You don't really need to extrude this one, but we will extrude all of this as a whole, as one body. So we'll finish the sketch, and we'll do that as 3mm up. Fantastic. And then I'm going to go and reactivate that sketch here. And I'm going to go pick up this bottom part here. I'm not going to go the one outside. And I'm going to also turn this into a solid body as well. Okay. So for those of you who know, if I do this at 3mm, it's just going to want to cut into the middle. So I want this to be at 3 mils, but I also don't want it to cut anything out of the middle of this foundation, right? I need that part. So what I need to do first is make an offset. So I'll go here, make an offset of 3mm, and that will put that reference body on top, right? So this is looking like a little bit on the smaller side for scale, but that's fine. And I want this to be a new body. So there we go. I can turn off my origin until I need it later. I can turn off that sketch. And pretty much all of our walls are going to be built touching this surface here and built from that edge. Okay, so we've got the start of our referencing here. Okay, so the next thing I need to do here is start building my walls. Okay, eventually this body will be, we won't laser cut that. We'll just use it as a reference. So here, I'll just name this foundation, and I'll call this wall reference body, or just wall reference. Okay, so and what I'm going to do here is go around each of these surfaces here and build my walls. And what this will let me do is, because I need them all to be 3mm thick out of plywood, it'll help me kind of plan how they're all going to go together. So there'll be tabs cut in the bottom, and the sides and the top for when we eventually put on the roof. So yeah, we'll get into it. I'll add a sketch here. You can reference these if you want to. So to do that, you would hit the P for project shortcut and just hit that. You can leave it as a solid if you want. Often I just use it as a reference and just change it into a construction line. But yeah, you can do whatever you want here. So then I'm going to bring these walls, I'm going to add another rectangle to this. I'll make sure I'm looking at it like that. And like I said, I'm really just kind of eyeballing this one as to the right way to make it. So I'm just kind of, I'm not making this into scale. It's really just to show you the methods that I'm using. So at the moment, I've got two selectable areas. So when I eventually extrude this out to be a wall, I'll have to make sure that I select both areas each time because I want the wall to go against this surface. So here, I'm going to keep going with this sketch, and this is where I'll put in my tabs, right? So for those of you who have seen the jewelry box little tutorial that I do, this is the same method of tabbing. So I'll add tabs at the bottom and at the top as well. So 3 by 10, good. You don't have to measure them exactly. You can just do this and then use the dimension function to measure them exactly the way you want. So if you just want to work quick, do it like this. And then you can go back and use your shortcut D for dimension to plan all these out. Yeah. So it is important to get standard measurements for, you know, where things are placed. So 10 millimeters from the edge, 10 millimeter width for your tabs, and you can reference other tabs measurements as well. So you'll see that is a function of the original measurement. So I'll keep going around and referencing this. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just it has to be consistent. So I'll go through and show you when I've dimensioned all this. I'll do a few more just for your, just so you know what to do. And that's pretty good. So yeah, what I'll do here, dimension this one across. Reference that dimension, oh sorry, that dimension there, it's this dimension, and just keep going around in that way. I'll align these up and everything like that later on, so I'll pause this and yeah, just get back to you when it's a bit further along. Okay, just finishing up that, it's been a few minutes, it's gone by. So just one for this one here, this dimension. If I want to put this tab directly in the middle, you don't have to, but if you want to get that kind of thing right, the way I do it is through measuring in this way. So firstly, you need a whole measurement of the piece that you're using, and then you want to go to one side and select this distance here, like that. And then you want to essentially type a formula. So you want to reference this dimension. And to place this in the middle, you'll need to divide that dimension by 2, but then also to get this part in the middle, you'll need to add, or you'll need to minus this distance, half the distance here. So yeah, we'll do that. So that'll be D20, delete all that. So that'll be this dimension divided by 2 minus half of this tab. Okay, when I measure it, if I've done my maths correctly, yeah, so that's 54.5. And get my selection, measure this one too. 54.5, yep, so I'm in the middle. Cool, so that's pretty much it for this sheet here. I can go in and put in windows and stuff like that later. What's really important that I do now is get these tabs in, because that'll reference other, you know, other parts. If you want to make your extrusions easier, you can go through and just rub out these parts in between. So you just go through and make sure you're just selecting these segments of line. You can always just go undo if you need to. So just essentially what I'm doing is just making this all one selectable sheet, and you can just test that by checking that. I might want to remove that part of the projection as well. Alright, might have a little trouble with these here, but we'll just wait and see. Okay, so I'm going to finish that sketch, and I can see that I can select the top of it, but these bits aren't coming through. So what I might do is just make these bodies invisible for a bit. So the base there, and make this sketch visible. Yeah, so I can see them here. So if I go here and then hit Control, I think the other way you can do it is like isolate the sketch or something like that. So I've got all that selected. I can turn my other foundation bodies and things like that back on, and I want to extrude this out 3 millimeters, but I just want to make it a new body. Okay, so that will intersect the foundation, and that's what I want. Okay, so you should see it like this. I'll just call it wall 1. Okay, and then what we're going to do is use that same technique to go all the way around the outside, essentially using this to make the next bit of the wall. Yeah, so I'll keep going with that, and yeah, I'll start the sketch, then I'll skip forward, and you guys can come back when I've made that. I'll just extrude it and show you the next step since you've seen the sketch already. Okay, so you can see here I've just dropped down my sketch, and now I'm going to start dimensioning. I'll just put down these original dimensions, and then I'll just do an internal reference for everything else like I did in the last one. So 3 and 10, and then it's 10 from the edge as well. Cool. So I'll keep going around and do that, and I'll check back in with you when the extrusion's ready. So one thing to note here, just so you're not worried that you're doing anything wrong, I'll delete this one and show you what happens. So if I go to D and try and dimension this across, because this is already essentially locked in by pre-existing geometry, when I go to place this down, it'll say over-constrained sketch. What it'll do is it'll give you the option to create a driven sketch. So a driven sketch is essentially just a reference without making something you can edit to change the dimensions of this piece, so it won't conflict with other constraints that you've put in. Okay. So don't worry about that. Just go create driven. It'll put it in brackets. You can still reference it, but it won't control the dimensions of your sketching per se. Okay, so a few more minutes have gone by and I've done this sketch fully. I haven't trimmed out these parts here. Just noting that I haven't put in any geometry over here. I'm going to extrude this out. Oh, there's one thing I haven't gotten right here, so I can constrain that height. So that's gone a bit too high. This line here should be down in line with this one. So I'll just see if I can change that reference. Hopefully I haven't over-constrained it, so I'll go here to here. Tinker with this and see if I can redo that line. So here I couldn't actually redimension that line, so what I'm going to do is redraw it as a flat line over here. Let's go to my line tool, come over here to where that reference is, make sure it's on that grid reference, and just draw it horizontally across. I'll trim out this line, and then I'll have to redimension this. And then what I'll do here is I'll put a collinear constraint on the bottom of these tabs here. So I'll go collinear there, here, and here. If you know your geometry, then all of these should make sense to you. They're really handy design tools. So this is pretty much ready. I could go around individually, select the tabs, and then select the body. But I'll go in and trim out the things that I don't want. So just clicking, clicking once for each line. Sometimes there's doubled up lines, that's okay. Just click twice. Alright, so So I should have a fully selectable area here. Okay, so everything should be able to be selected. That's great. I'll need to go in and customize the selection down here and do what I did before. So I'll get rid of my reference, everything else, and I'll go through and select the areas that I want to use. So here, here, these tabs down the bottom, holding down Control, as you'll see. Okay, and then just making sure I've got this area selected, and then I can extrude out 3 mils. Okay, it's going to cut that off. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to make it a new body. All right, and this is where I'll show you the technique for making these things fit together. So here, I've got these two walls. Obviously, this part here is intersecting, and I'm going to use that to my advantage, or just to help lock in these walls. Yeah. So I need to think about what parts I need to cut, because I'm going to run a combine function here, a combine feature, sorry, and then make a little tab here so these walls can join together and glue together nicely as well. So I'll go wall. So I want to use wall 1 to cut out the tab from wall 2. Okay, and I'll show you how that works. So you go to combine. Make sure it's set to cut. So in this function you can join, cut, or intersect. The one I use mostly is cut, and followed closely by join. But if you hit cut, I want to cut out something from this block here. So target body there. And then under tool body, I'm going to select this. Because I want to keep these walls, I want to keep any tools that I'm using to model this, okay? Okay, so from here, you can see I've run that function, and now out of here, I've got these tabs cut in so they can interact with each other and glue in with each other as well. Okay. Then you look at my foundation. What you can do here is do the same thing to cut those tabs into the base. So if you look at just my foundation, that's just sitting there as a plain piece of what will be timber. So if I want to cut these tabs into the foundation to register where the walls should go, it'll really help you, because in general, if all of these are different lengths, only one piece will fit in one position. So it should tell you really clearly where your pieces should go. So to do that, you just do the same method, right? You run a cut, the target body is the foundation, and the tool bodies, you can select these walls. Okay, so you can do it all at the same time. All right, so I'm going to do these two, but you could potentially do all of your walls in this method, and then cut your tabs in one go, essentially. So I'm going to do that, and just see how that looks. Cool. So you'll notice here I've got my tabs going in at the bottom, and I've got the negatives cut into the foundation there. All right. So this will keep everything straight. We are using pine plywood. Just the Bunnings pine plywood that you get, 3mm premium, to model this. So, and that does warp, you know, with moisture or sometimes in manufacturing. So it just helps to kind of make your models look really nice and kind of well calibrated in terms of your angles and things like that. What we'll do eventually, I'll probably make a secondary tutorial to this one, is how to cover up your walls with little, you know, features like architectural features and things like that, so you can cover up and glue over these little joins, so you hide them and kind of increase the quality of your you know, your architectural model while you're at it. So I'll keep going with this and check in when I've done the rest of the walls. Okay, so this next part is done. A little shortcut you might want to make to align these tabs with these tabs is use the collinear constraint again. So you go here, click on this and make it collinear with that. Since this is already dimensioned and locked in place, this will just kind of line up exactly with where that other part is too. Yeah, so just a little tip there. And then I can go through finally and do this one as well. I'll show you when it's all extruded. All right, sketch is finished. Go through, I can make everything else invisible on the foundation, everything there. Pick up these. These will still segment because they're these lines, these sketch lines are like touching this body here and also the foundation. Okay, so it still kind of adds a segment to the sketch. So go here, control select everything, and then extrude out 3 mils. Make sure that you're making it a new body. and then go through and cut this one out. You'll notice that a tab hasn't gone up there. That's okay, I'll go fix that in a sec. Tool body is this. Keep my tools, and that'll cut in a tab. Then I'll go back and edit this feature and just control select that part. Cool, all done. Alright, so when you're doing this technique, you can obviously make it much bigger. You set your scale, but the technique will remain the same. I'll keep going and let you know when I'm done. Okay, so I've got the side here dimension and the tops dimension too. What I'll show you quickly is that collinear alignment technique. So here, I'm just going to go collinear, click up here, and click this reference, that reference, they'll line up, and then you can do the other side as well. So it saves you having to input the numbers and things like that as well. And hopefully if you change these around, or if you need to change them at a later date, the bottom tabs should align with the top tabs based on those dimensions. Yeah, that's pretty much the update there. I'll go through and do the same technique here and extrude this wall out. So it's getting faster and faster the more walls I put in. So yeah, and if you do 2 tabs, then you won't need to do that messing about with the measurement in the middle, but I would recommend doing more than 2 for longer walls. Cool, I'll extrude this out, keep going, check back in with you in a bit. Okay, so I'm building around bit by bit. You can see these tabs cut into the bottom, only some of them are actually cut, but yeah, we'll do those later after we finish everything. With this one, because it's like an internal corner, you might have to like turn some parts on and off in order to fit it. And also this here, I can see that this probably needs to be pulled back by 3 millimeters. So that should be, a bit further in. So I might just go and adjust that sketch. So I'll move this back. Worst case scenario is I just trim that off fresh, 3 millimeters back, and just redraw a bit. Because I can't see a constraint that'll kind of pull me back along this line here, I might just go ahead and do that. So these little adjustments are very common. So delete these parts, and then I'll draw a vertical line. I can use my grid reference here as well. So if I go here, I can count back 3 millimeters. So I go here, same thing here, go 1, 2, 3 mils, and put that down. Let's redo that line. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3 mils all the way down to the bottom. And I can trim out the lines I don't need. Check for any lines here. Yep, trim out that one. And then I just add my box and redimension it. Dimension here to here, and dimension this, I think it was 6 mils. Cool, and then I can get rid of this and that, and then go back and do my extrude. So I'll finish that sketch again. So you can see there's a little tab that's stuck out here, so I'll just go and edit the extrude and make sure that's deselected. Just go hold down Control, select that, and that part. Cool, now I'm ready to draw the next part of the line. I might just use one tab top and bottom for this, so I'll go on here, add a sketch, and you'll see that this part of the wall is in the way, so don't be afraid to like turn off the view of the things that you need to change. And draw this up from here to here. And then put in my tabs. So if you don't have to put your tabs in the middle, it's not essential, but it can help. Make it 10 across. Dimension it to be 3. Leave that there, and then I'll just make this dimension here to here. Do the same technique I did before, because I got one in the middle. It's an odd number, so I want to center it in the middle. So it'll be divided by 2. minus 5, just half of the length of the tab. And I can draw another one down here, like that, and then I can just use my collinear constraint tool to constrain these in. You need to make sure this is fully dimensioned before you attempt these collinear constraints, because sometimes they can, throw each other out. So that's all good there. I can just put my tab on here. If I wanted to, I could just use the project function here and like project that part of the geometry on, so I can project that line, that line. So the tab will be in the same spot. And I should be able to go through and select both of those areas when I pull this tab out. So I'll turn everything else off. Here, 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 and here, and here. Finish sketch. I can still select that and pull it out by 3 mil. New body, fantastic. And I'll get my other walls back in place. And then I have to run a cut between these two. So here, I'm going to cut that out. I'll use that to cut it. And I'm going to keep the tools, go OK. So you should see that's cut out the way I want it to be. Awesome. Now I can move on with the last wall. I'll turn all the walls back on. So what this will let you do here is you'll be able to laser cut the foundation fairly quickly after this, but you also need to consider internal walls and what you're going to do that. So if you were doing internal walls, you could do like a quick 3D print to kind of space out your walls and things like that. So you could print thinner, like say 1 millimeter thick kind of boxes that you just put in place and join onto one another. There's lots of different techniques, or you can continue on laser cutting this stuff out as well. So I'll do this last wall and then we'll talk about other techniques from here. Okay, sketch is done. I'm just going to trim out the bits I don't need. For this one, because there's tabs coming out from wall 1 and wall 7, sorry, wall 5, I'll rename that. I don't need to kind of build in any tabs on this one. So I'll finish that sketch. Grab this guy, control select everything I need, extrude out 3 mils, make it a new body, very repetitious technique, and then do my cuts. So here, target body is this, use that and that, keep the tools, okay. So I should be able to see that final part cut in. And then when we look at everything, we've got walls for our, say if this is a 1-story house, we've got that there, we've got our foundation, everything like that as well. And so finally what we'll do is just go through and just do our cuts into the foundation. So here, I'll get rid of the wall reference. I'll get rid of all the walls actually and just check which ones I need to do. So I've got wall 1 cut in, I've got wall 2 cut in. So then I need to do 3, 4, 5 and wall 6. So to do that, you can save this for the very end if you want. The target body is this. And the tool bodies are this wall, this wall, this wall, and this wall. And I'll keep the tools after. I'll let that go, and then if I turn this off, you'll see that all of my tabs are cut in around. And not only that, all of the intersections between the walls have been planned out, right? So you can see here that all the walls will go in a certain order. Wall there, wall 2 there. And you can visually check all of your joins as well, all right? One thing you might want to do is if I laser cut this out, I will probably lose a bit of material and these joints would probably be a little bit loose. So you can do a technique of adding a little bit of extra material. So I'll show you what that means. If you grab, so what I'll do here is drag a box around everything, and then I'm going to if I can, deselect some surfaces. Okay, so I'll do so what I want to use is a press pull. See if I can select everything. Then I want to deselect that and deselect that. Cool. And I also want to deselect the edges. It doesn't really matter if this kind of gets caught in your push pull. it just might be a little bit faster than going around and selecting all of these kind of bits one by one. Actually, what I'm going to do to save time, because time was definitely of the essence with all this, so I'll go here, I'll select everything, I'll just deselect the top, deselect the bottom, and essentially what you want to do is you want to add material back in, right? Because you lose a bit too much material when you laser cut. So what I'll do is I'll just add 0.1 millimeters to everything, and I'll just check and make sure that hasn't stuffed everything up. So what it's done is put in a so it's put in a little fillet as well on the surfaces. That's because I've selected the edges. Okay, so I'll go back and that's not really what I want, so I'll go back and go to the drawing board on that technique. So I might be able to see a method to deselect the edges and just the surfaces. So hold on one second, I'll see if I can find that. Cool. So what I need to do here is just select the faces. So what I've done here, I've gone to the select tool and I've gone selection filters, and I've just selected body faces because I only want to select the faces here. After I've done this, I can change it back to select all, which is the default. So I go here, 0.1 millimeters. It can be really, really hard to see, but adding that little bit of extra material will make all of your joints just that bit tighter. You can add anywhere from 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters. Anything more and you're really pushing it, but keep in mind that you're adding material from each side. So the diameter here is now 0.2 millimeters less, so it should be 2.8, but that's just kind of accounting for the laser when we cut it. It also minuses a little bit of, or adds a bit of material here, that's fine, we don't really care, but it'll help these holes kind of really grab onto the material as we're putting in our walls. So next thing to do will be to have a look at these walls here. And we want to add a little bit more material to these edges bit by bit. So we're going to go here, Control Select here. You can do this to either side, but pick either the tabs or the external parts of the tabs or the internal parts of the tabs. Don't do both. You can do that one by one, or you can do it as you go around. So I'm going to go around and select them all. Danger with this is if you misclick and lose your selection, you have to start again. But I'm just turning my bodies off and on as I go, just to make it nice and clear what's happening. So this, you'll still get a good architectural model if you do this. If you don't do this method. What this will do though is make the joints that you've designed, have a bit of have a good fit. Okay, don't need to do those there. All right, I can turn all of these on. All right, and what I want to do to those surfaces is just add 0.1 to everything. And what you'll notice as soon as you do that is that there'll be a bit of intersection here. That's fine. That's what we want. Because when this is laser cut as a sheet, we'll lose that material. It should just be a nice snug fit. All right, so what do we do next? We want to get this onto a laser cutter, right? So we already have, to run a laser cutter, in our case, a Trotec laser cutter running Ruby. We want to go from our model to vectors, right? All of our sketch files, they're vectors. Okay, so what we should be able to do in most cases is copy these out. Actually, no, we won't be able to because we've made slight adjustments. So this original sketch here, for example, so this sketch here, we won't be able to use that because we've cut all these in. So what we need to actually do is make new sketches based on all of the geometry we just made. So I'll turn off all of these sketches here. That's fine. But what we're going to do is run projection sketches. We'll just make sure that we can isolate each bit as we go. So I'm going to right click on each body. And the method for this is really we're just going to run a projected sketch. So I'm going to make sure I'm going on the top. Just if you can select the bottom, I've had a bit of difficulty with like mirroring things and mirrored orientations and stuff like that. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go add sketch, and all I'm going to do is hit P and then just click on that top surface of that body. And I'm just going to go OK and finish sketch. That's it. So sketch 8 will be there. It'll be all purple. Purple is a projection, okay? And these are the vector files that I will use for my actual laser cutting once I've done my modeling. And so the technique now becomes going around to each of your walls and projecting off them too. Okay, so I'm going to go here, new sketch, this surface, P for project, and go OK. And I'll turn off wall 2, turn on wall 1 here. I'll finish that sketch, then I'll go here, new sketch here, P for project, there. OK. Finish sketch, and you'll see here sketch 8, 9, and 10 are all my projection sketches. Wall 3. Here, select that surface, new sketch, P for project, click there. OK. If it's getting a bit too busy for you, that's fine. You can just turn off all of these sketches as you go. Turn off that body, turn on the next wall, click this one, add a sketch, P for project, click OK. Turn off that and that, go to wall 5, select the surface, finish the previous sketch first, got to remember to do that. Select that, wall 5, P, OK, finish sketch, and go here. Okay, so I've got, just check where I'm at with my sketches. So I've got one there, I've got one more to do. Select that surface, go here, hit P for project, hit the surface, and go OK. Finish that sketch. Now what I should have is all of the projected sketches for the outside of my house. Actually, it looks kind of cool. So what I'm going to do from here is each of these sketches are going to be exported as DXF files. So I'll see if I can export a whole bunch. Nope, I have to do it individually, that's okay. So right click, export DXF. This is in millimeters, and I want to make sure that I've got a few things selected. So keep your points. Definitely in this case you want to do projected geometry. I don't really have any construction geometry here in my sketches, so I don't need to worry about selecting or deselecting that. I can just leave it. But we definitely want projected geometry selected. You can use this just in case you have a sketch that's got a few different elements to it and you want to only capture some bits. So I'll go OK on that. I'll go into sketch 8 to my downloads, and I go through and do that for each sketch. Export DXF, OK. Save. Export DXF, OK. Save. And you keep doing that. Now I'm going to take you over to Ruby after I do this, and I'm just going to go in and make sure that you have a certain option selected. I get all of my students to do this. If you're running Ruby, this should be fine for you. If you're running something like VLS or something like that, that's running other New South Wales schools, you might have to tinker with some of the settings. If you're lucky, a DXF file should just be a native file type that the laser cutter understands, and you'll just be able to get cutting straight away. Alright, so I'll jump out of here for a sec, I'll get Ruby started up, and I'll take you through the options you need to select, and then we'll get moving with our importing our vectors. Okay, so this is Trotec Ruby, and I'll just go in and show you the options that you need to select in order to get this moving. So over here, this is the main kind of menu. In general, Ruby works in this way. So you'll go here to manage jobs, then you'll edit and design jobs, and then you'll just kick them out to the laser cutter and queue them up. So you can just import any file. If you're running Ruby, you need to do this one thing first in order to get DXF files working as vectors. So you got to go to here, go to settings, and you want to make sure that this flatten splines in DXF files, that needs to be enabled. Okay, really, really important. Your DXF files will show up as an error every time you try and import them if you don't hit that particular thing. So make sure you save it, and then you can go about getting your jobs in place. So import file, and we're going to go see if I can just select all of these and import all of those. So you need to select your units. So I've designed in Fusion in millimeters. Sometimes you might be working in other platforms where you design in centimeters. You can just pick, as soon as you pick your units here, they'll all go in. So you got sketch, all the sketches here as DXF files going in there. Now what I would do is go back and just start a new design. I'll just make this a standard A4 sheet. So 297, 210, I like it landscape. And then what I'm going to do here is save changes. I'm going to go select all, copy, go to new design and paste. Then same for all of the other sketches. So sketch 9, 10, don't need to bother about saving changes, copy. Oops, yeah, I didn't need to worry about saving changes. So I'll put that one in. I'll go back to my first sketch. Yes, save changes. Control A for all. Copy, put that into my design. Space it out. We'll go and arrange these in a little bit. So 9 and 10's done. Sketch 8. I might do that on a separate sheet. Ruby's quite handy in that it'll make a sheet exactly the size of your vector file. So 182 by 157, I can actually grab that and put that in my A4 sheet. So Control C, and go here, Control V. You know, with a little bit of luck, I might be able to fit all of these cuts onto a single A4 sheet, which would be great. You can move these over. So really, it's just a game of Tetris to kind of arrange all of your walls and stuff like that. You might want to do vertical down here or something as well, but yeah, we'll just see how we go. So 9, save changes, yes. 9's done, 10's done, 8's done, 14, Control A, Control C, go here, Control V, move it around. Okay, so up to 14, so 11's next. Save my changes, Control A, Control C. So very repetitive here, but just learning that technique, as always, is really important. And then, what was I up to? I did 14, so 12 is next. Okay, and finally 13. Great. Okay, so that's all fitting onto one single A4 sheet, and that's how I would arrange my cuts. Now, I haven't gone through the whole process of like adding windows and all of that stuff. I can do that in another video. I do have some ideas for doing like sliding doors and stuff like that, but they probably need to be at a larger scale. These are quite small pieces. They're only a few centimeters tall, so I'll do that in the next video, I think. Anyway, to get all of this arranged and working, there's a few things you can do to make your whole workflow kind of, and your cutting a bit more, come out a bit better, use time and materials more effectively. You know, you never know when someone's going to need a little bit of scrap that's about the size of the thing that you're, you know, leaving behind. So one thing I always do is try and like put these together as much as possible. You don't want to jam them right up like this, because remember there's slight differences in the cuts. But wherever you can, just try and butt things up together and save space. Even if we can save this bit of material here, that would be a good thing. So I'll try and fit it in here, try and move that down just a little bit. In general, if you are I totally forgot what I was saying. If you zoom in, sorry, yeah, you can do more fine-tuned movements. One thing I notice. Ruby can be a little bit of a clunky interface for selecting things like that, but mostly it's pretty good. So I'll move that down, move that up. Okay, and position, cool. So I'm clear of everything here. I can fit all of those cuts on, and I've got a nice bit of scrap timber left over there as well. So last thing I need to do is a couple of things here. One of them really important, two of them really important. So you have to set this as a cut line. So this needs to be red. Okay, you might have made it red in another program like Illustrator, but I would always go through, select everything, and click that red button there. Makes it, what it'll do is code it as a cut line. Even slight variations in that hexadecimal code for red will render it, as just something that laser code doesn't read. So I'm going to go create job. So this is where it's sitting on my laser cutting bed. Everything's red. So if you get to here and things are red, that means it will be, defined as a cut. Then you just need to do a couple of things. One thing I always do is skip all overlapping lines. Because I've butted these lines right up to each other, I don't want them to cut twice because it'll just burn my material and look like crap. Then I want to select my material. So in this case, I'm using pine plywood. This is the Tempe High School kind of setting that we've developed to get good cuts. And that's pretty much it. So from there, I can just queue that up. And then I've got all of my walls, right? So I could go there, definitely I would go in and do all my doors and things like that, windows, all of that stuff. But you get to you can use this method to also add more detail to your 3D models, to your architectural model overall, and also integrate it more with other things like 3D printed parts. And that's what I'll do in the next demonstration, is show you how to kind of insert a sliding window kind of assembly as a 3D print using acrylic and laser cutting together to make that kind of nice slick looking sliding door. So that's what I'll do in the next dem. And until then, there's the basic skills that you really have to know in order to make it like a good, accurate 3D model. You might go and find some other tutorials online that are, even better than this. This is just where I'm at with my skill level in architectural modeling, and it'll just help you really make accurate models. There's other things like painting and things like that you can do here as well. The next kind of jump in this skill will be to add in those finer details and also incorporate your model with 3D printed parts. Adding 3D printed parts, if you look at the original 3D model, it'll help you hide some of the cuts and the messy things that don't look as good, and help you make your model a lot cleaner. Anyway, I'll stop yapping, and hope you guys enjoyed the dem, hope it helped, and I'll see you next time.